Hello, everybody, and welcome to another forecast. So, 2 days ago, I talked about a little snow system that was going to come from northern Minnesota down into the Midwest and the Great Lakes. And I was saying that it would just bring some light snow flurries and probably wouldn't stick. I do live in the Midwest, and to be honest, it did snow and it didn't stick. So, I count that a success. So, that is kind of what we do here, trying to keep track of everything. So, I'm just kind of putting that in my record books. So what I want to talk about today is just snow. Again, it's going to be snow for a while. It's winter. That's just natural. And what we have happening is that snow system I was talking about, this low pressure that was centered right, which is now here, and it rotates counterclockwise. This is going to be moving on to the northeast as it takes this trajectory that went kind of like this. So I'm looking at this model right now, and this is from now, basically today. And as you can see, that low pressure kind of went off to the east, which will dump a little bit of snow into New York, but otherwise, again, nothing too serious. However, there has been a recent system that is showing up on products that are more long term. This NAM model I'm using right now only goes up to about 3.5 days in the future, which won't be enough for what we're seeing. But before I start talking about this new system, I want to talk about El Nino. So, if you aren't aware of what El Nino is, that's basically when waters in the Pacific near the equator get really hot. And that actually affects a lot of weather systems throughout the country. So, in El Nino, there's a low pressure system near Alaska, or out of Alaska into the Pacific, right here. And that brings pretty stable jet streams that don't really move up and down very often. So, what you'll see is a lot of low pressure systems form right here in California and Arizona, and those low pressure systems will be jetted out to the east. Again, without moving too much north or south, obviously there's going to be some variation. And now I'm looking at the European model, which is going to show us what we saw earlier right through this tab right here. So, as I was saying, low pressure systems will form right in this little area: California, Arizona, New Mexico, anywhere in this vicinity. Now, the way you can tell these low pressure systems are forming here is by looking at these wind barbs. So on maps like this, the side of the dot where the arrows are coming through, you see these little flags, we call them flags. That means the wind is coming from this direction and going through there, like so. You can see it in the different wind barbs. This kind of fits with what is happening here. But if we kind of continued this around, you can see that it's kind of looping, especially down here. You can see it's turning. Oops. It's turning as this happens right here. So remember, as I said, low pressure systems, they rotate counterclockwise. That's how I know they're forming here. Now, I'm going to look more into this European model, as right now I am basically in the same area of viewage that I saw with the NAM model. So as we move further up here, we're going past the NAM model, and you can kind of see this happening again, right? See the curvature, and you can see how it's turning in a circle, just like a low pressure system would. And it gets jetted off to the east. Now, as the European model gets further and further away from the date we're at, I mean, you can look up here, this is a week in the future, it's going to become less accurate. But we do have another model that is showing us basically the same thing, or the same idea, right? So this is the GFS model, and this is the NAM model. I'm going to move them both at the same time frame. You can see in both of them, this right here, this right here. And what this is a massive low pressure system that is likely to form over here. Now, again, this is really far out, so we don't want to put too much emphasis on it. But if this were to form, it would dump a lot of snow basically everywhere. And both of these are saying this will tighten up and just move east, dumping lots of snow with it. So I'm now looking at the European models, total snow accumulation. Again, total snow accumulation, this means from today to January 5th. So that's pretty far. But on January 7th, which is when we were looking at that trough forming here, you can see all this snow just slowly piling up. And here we're seeing from a day before where it had about 4 or 5 inches of snow. Day after, it's seeing 26, the 20s, 30s even in a few days. And that is blizzard conditions. And as this moves all the way to the east. And this fits with this low pressure system up here. And you can see it's extremely strong. This gradient here, it's very tight. Usually, as we go back here, see it's not super tight. It's only tight at low pressure systems, and these jet streams don't usually have that fast of winds. But with this system that'll be moving through, we're seeing wind values of upwards of 90 miles an hour or more even as this moves forward. And not on the ground. This is 5,000 feet in the air. But what happens 5,000 feet in the air is very important to what happens at the surface. So I won't go too crazy into this. It's just this is something to look out for in the future, and I'll probably do another forecast as we get closer to the event because who knows what could happen with this. Hurricanes are very hard to predict because of how far in the future we often try to look at them from, and who knows, maybe this might not be nearly as severe as it's looking at. So, it's important to remember is this is almost 2 weeks in the future, so take that with a grain of salt. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and see you in the next forecast.